Welcome back, wine world. So in the spirit of the holidays, we're going to shift from wine and go to spirits. Today we're going to focus on gin. Gin happens to be one of my favorite spirits, one because of its turbulent and interesting past. If you want to know more about the history of gin, check out Spirit Lab's Focus on Gin on Winesoaked.com. But more importantly, because it was my first spirit that I ever enjoyed all by itself, without tons and tons of sugary mixers. And it really kind of opened up my eyes to what the wonderful world of artisanal alcohol has to offer. Today we have the pleasure of being able to feature Martin Miller's gin, which is a really exciting kind of forerunner in the resurgence of quality gin in the international market. Martin Miller has been making gin since 1998. So kind of a new player in the game. However, really the comeback of gin started again in the 90s and is really hitting its stride in the last 5 to 6 years with this kind of resurgence of mixology. So he's kind of a really important key player. I've been doing some research about him. Super interesting guy. I would love to actually share a martini with him one day. I encourage you to go to martinmillersgin.com and read his story. Highly entertaining. But I want to focus more on his product right now. It's a delicious gin that's made in a really interesting way. Basically, his philosophy is not to go completely crazy, completely off the wall, zany, but really to take the history and tradition of gin and refine it, and just really get down to the nuts and bolts and perfect the process. And I think he's doing a really, really good job at it. First off, an interesting way he distills his gin is pot distillation. This really kind of harkens back to the early days of gin, but when done correctly can make a really kind of intense, artisanal, expressive product. His particular pot still is named Angela. She is a gigantic pot still that has been in England since 1908 and is really thought of to be one of the greatest pot stills of all time. There's a picture of her on his website. So he uses Angela, he puts his grain base in there to distill, and he adds in his botanicals. Now the botanicals are interesting, especially with his approach. Gin makers can use up to 35 or more botanicals in their blend, as long as juniper berries are in the forefront. Mr. Miller decided to kind of focus it down to 7 and really try and get a layered expression out of all of them, which I really, really appreciate. Especially coming from a sommelier background, I'm all about really distinctive flavors, bouquets, how they play on one another, and you know, subtle beauty is always appreciated. So his blend is juniper, angelica, lime peel, licorice root, cassia, which is kind of similar to cinnamon, Florentine Florentine irises, and coriander. Now I really enjoy that he publishes his full blend. A lot of people, like, that's their little precious. Nobody gets to find the blend. That's their secret. I appreciate that his philosophy is that his secret weapon is his attention to detail and perfectionism, which is great. That's something that nobody can steal because it's true to oneself. And I think it makes a great product. So once these botanicals are added to the pot still, the flavor's there, it really integrates well. He then ships this product to Iceland, where he bottles it. This might seem like a silly thing to do. A lot of gin houses just bottle their gin right there in England where the distillery is with distilled water, bottle it and ship it off to the world. But since we're dealing with quality here, he thought, why use distilled water? Distilled water is kind of a dead, innocuous product. Why not use living water or mineral water, something with expression? And again, from the wine world, I can appreciate anything that kind of focuses on terroir, if you will. Iceland is one of the greatest places in the world for mineral water. It's the land of fire and ice. It's got, volcanic deposits, obviously ice, very little pollution. So really great place to do this. And ironically, this process actually makes him leave less of a carbon footprint on the world because it's way cheaper, or way less carbon footprinty to ship a bunch of glass bottles from Iceland to the US than it is to ship a bunch of glass bottles from England to the US. And since most of his exports actually go to the US, not only is he making an excellent product, but he's also helping Mother Nature. So cheers to you, Mr. Miller. But now let's do what we love to do here and focus on the actual product at hand. So we're going to focus on 4 cocktails today that I think are tasty, easy, and holiday specific. More importantly, cost effective and easy to find the ingredients for. The first one is probably the most classic you can make a cocktail, which is gin neat. Now for those of you who aren't familiar with cocktail terminology of any kind, neat means that there's no anything added to it. No ice cubes, no anything. I chose to chill down my glass just to kind of get the gin to a more appropriate temperature. But this is really enjoying the spirit for what the spirit has to offer. And I do encourage you, if you do like to drink spirits, to drink these this way every once in a while. You should be appreciating what you drink. If you don't like the taste of what you're drinking, you should find a different drink that you like. I do have a little dropper bottle of water. I like to keep this handy, not to dilute my spirit per se, but kind of like when we're tasting wine, we swirl to get the bouquet out of the wine. A couple drops of water just really helps open up the bouquet of the spirit. That way you're not getting a full nose of just straight up alcohol. I'm going to swirl it around. This is a pretty gin. Very delicate. I can smell for sure little hints of each of the botanicals. I'm not getting like a really intense perfumey element, which is great. And I'm definitely not like, I'm smelling alcohol, just straight up rubbing alcohol. The juniper berries are definitely on the forefront. Juniper kind of smells like blueberry, but a little more antique-y. I can smell the angelica in there, which is also used in making of absinthe, so it's got that kind of wormwoody, licoricey note. Definitely some hints of licorice. The lime is really present here, which I think is going to be great for cocktail making, just because lime's great and everything, and gin cocktails often are lime-centric. I can smell a little bit of the cassia. I assume that's going to come out more on the actual palate. And then the iris is so lovely in here. Like, there's definitely a floral and herbaceous element. I would wear this as a perfume, actually. And then on the back end you get the coriander, and I love the smell of coriander. It kind of reminds me of cucumber salad a little bit, which I just find super refreshing. Oh. That is a delicious gin. I could drink this gin literally all day. You probably wouldn't want to be around me after about an hour, but I would have a fabulous time. This goes down really, really smooth. There's definitely not like a really astringent alcoholic burn. And then there's this afterburst of botanicals. It's almost like a cloud in my mouth. Just rolling with the licorice, the lime. I'm definitely getting more of that earthy note from the cassia in there, and the floral notes. That's an excellent gin neat. So cheers, Mr. Miller. Now as far as the 3 kind of more complicated cocktails I picked, I chose them for specific reasons. One, we're not doing the 2 most famous gin cocktails, which is the gin martini, the original martini, or the gin and tonic, as both of them just get way too much attention. And I really think that those flavors aren't really appropriate or specific, especially for Thanksgiving. Maybe a little more Christmassy, but Thanksgiving, I think you want a little bit more fun, a little bit more fruit, something to kind of cut through the fat, if you will. So what I did is I actually asked all of my Facebook and Twitter fans to recommend cocktails for me in the last couple of days, and then I picked the ones that I thought were the most autumnal. I did get a bunch of great recommendations. A lot of them were really summery, so maybe we'll see them come back sometime around April. But right now we're going to focus on the pink gin, a version of a French 75, and the orange blossom. The pink gin is the first one we're going to start with. This was actually invented by the British Navy, which is a fun story. Basically, the British Navy has been drinking gin since inception, and for years they actually required that you take cocktail making classes as part of your training. If this were still the case, who knows? I may have joined the Navy. Nonetheless, in the 1870s, one lucky sailor came up with the pink gin. You'll notice I just put ice in my shaker here. What I'm going to do is pour myself a jigger of Martin Miller's gin here. A jigger is the shot glass that actually comes with your shaker. You can also buy them separately, but it's 1.5 ounces of gin. I'm just going to pour that right up to the top there. The only reason I'm putting this in the shaker, this is going to be a pretty strained cocktail in the glass. I don't want rocks in there, but gin just really tastes great with some chill on it. And shaking it is the quickest way to do that. So we put it on the top. This is way better for you than the shake weight. Shake it around. While that's chilling in there, I'm going to take my Angostura bitters. This is the easiest bitters to find. You can literally find it in any grocery store across America. If I could find it down here in Harlingen, Texas, you can too. And I'm taking a chilled martini glass. I had this chilling for a few hours in the freezer. However, you can also just put ice cubes in, swirl it around until the glass feels cold, dump the ice cubes out, and you're good to go. So I'm going to put 4 dashes of this bitters in the glass. And then I'm just going to swirl it around to coat the glass until it's really pretty and coated. I'm going to try not to spill on the table. And once you get a nice even coat here, which is what's going to make it the pink martini, you're going to pour your gin in. Oh, look at that. That is super pretty. And then we're going to take a lemon twist. I'm going to put a nice tip on the post for this show on how to do these. It takes a little practice, but once you have them, you'll never forget. I'm going to twist the lemon just a little bit over the top just to unleash some of the aromatics of the citrus. Now that is a pretty holiday cocktail. It smells nice and spicy, a little nutmeggy. Oh man. So this cocktail I think would be a great aperitif at Thanksgiving. This would be great for sitting around chatting with your family. Definitely there's enough spice from the bitters that it makes it a little bit more of a slow sipper. Really, really delicious. So we're going to set that guy right there. Next we're moving on to a fun one. This is my version of the French 75. So basically yesterday via Twitter I asked Martin Miller what his favorite holiday cocktail was, and he said the French 75, which is a delicious cocktail. However, unfortunately I am on a starving artist budget, so champagne wasn't really happening today. So I've now invented the Starving Artist 75. The original one of these was actually created in 1915 in the New York bar in Paris. Mine was created in 2012 in my living room in Harlingen, Texas. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take another jigger of Martin Miller's brandy, which is right here. I'm going to pour it in the ice. I'm just going to use the same shaker for this one since I didn't have any flavors in it last time, just gin, so it's not going to be contaminated. I'm reducing my carbon footprint as well. Pack that in with ice. Then I already have measured out 1/4 of an ounce of Spanish orange brandy. Normally the recipe has Condrieu. The difference between Spanish orange brandy and Condrieu, one from Spain, one from France, and about $30. So I'm going to pour this guy in. This is a delicious, delicious orange flavored brandy if you've never tried it. It kind of tastes like an orange candied in honey with just like a little sandalwood finish. And then I'm also putting in some fresh squeezed lemon juice. Obviously for any cocktail you can use juice that you buy in the store. I always say if you can fresh squeeze, why not? You're going to get the best flavor. So I'm going to put this back on top here. Shake weight it up again. See, I'm already burning off the calories from the first 2 cocktails. We're going to pour it into my chilled, again, I chilled the glass, champagne flute. And then, for the grand finale, I'm going to take my cava, which is a traditional method sparkling wine from Spain, and just fill her up right to the top here. I can never say no to anything with a little bit of bubbly in it. And then I made kind of a more delicate lemon twist for this one, just because I think it's a more delicate cocktail. Whew, that is refreshing. Oh, it's like an herbaceous lemonade with zip in it. That's so good. This would definitely be a great aperitif. This would be great for watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in the morning instead of a mimosa. And finally, we're going to go to the orange blossom. Now this one I think is specifically suited for Thanksgiving because I love oranges and savory Thanksgiving food. I just think they're a perfect counterbalance. It's got a little bit of sweetness and definitely the acidity to cut through the pounds and pounds of butter that you know you are about to consume. Alright, so with this one, I'm going to use a new shaker. I'm going to fill it up with ice. Historically, this one first appeared in the Old Waldorf Astoria Bar Book of 1935. So if you were a swanky executive in the 30s in New York, you would have had this drink. We are going to put another jigger of Martin Miller's gin in here. Then we're going to do a ½ ounce of fresh squeezed orange juice. A dash, which is like half of the amount of orange juice that I put in, of fresh squeezed key lime juice. And then a little bit of simple syrup. You can either make your own simple syrup or buy simple syrup. It just depends on how much time you have and how much you use simple syrup. But basically it's sugar that's dissolved into water so that you don't have granules of sugar floating around in your glass. So we're going to shake this whole thing up here. And then I made a little twist of clementine peel. I'm going to put that in the bottom of my glass. I'm going to strain my cocktail in there. That's just really pretty. Kind of looks like an Orangina commercial. And then a little extra lemon twist on the edge. Beautiful cocktail. Oh, it just smells refreshing. Oh man, that's so good. You would think that this is, you know, pretty basic orange juice and a spirit, but because of all the aromatics of the gin, it just makes this beautiful, delicate, layered cocktail that's super refreshing. There's also the notes of honey in there. It kind of reminds me of like a Mideastern pastry a little bit. This would definitely be kind of a good in-between courses, relaxing cocktail. I hope that you guys do explore these. I hope these help make a lovely holiday season for you. Again, as always, thanks for tuning in. You can find all of the recipes for these cocktails on winesoaked.com, as well as links to Martin Miller's gin. For my friends in Chicago, I know you can find this gin at Gilt Bar and the Drawing Room. For those of you that want it in your bars or your stores and don't have it yet, just keep requesting it and it will appear. That being said, happy Movember and cheers!